Hello, my name is Corey Campbell. I'm here today with another episode of Institute on Governance's Gov Talk series. In a few days, the IOG will be hosting a panel discussion on the past, present, and future of science advice in Canada. The event also marks the official launch of a book about the Science Council of Canada. With me today are Paul Dufour. He's Senior Fellow and Adjunct Professor, Institute for Science, Society and Policy, University of Ottawa, and Jeff Kinder, Executive Director here at the IOG, and he's also Fellow, Institute for Science, Society and Policy. Let's talk about science advice. My first question is to Jeff. So Jeff, what prompted you to want to write a book about the Science Council of Canada?
Paul and I believe strongly that the Science Council is a very important institution in the history of Canadian science policy and science advice, and yet no one has written a history of that organization.
So Paul, what does this book offer to people who work in science policy today and perhaps don't know much about the Science Council of Canada?
So the Science Council was a very important institution. I had the great privilege and pleasure of working there on 2 occasions. And knowing the history of the Science Council is important today because many of the issues we discussed resonate today.
Paul, how has the science policy landscape changed since the Science Council shut its doors in 1992?
So on a bad day, I would say it's not pretty. On a good day, I would say we're moving in a good and positive direction. We're trying to create new organizations, institutions that provide science advice to the general public. And I'm hopeful with the new generation of students coming up that we will have a nice cadre of well-trained people in science policy and advice.
So Jeff, the panel discussion on Thursday is a look at the past, present, and future of science advice. What is the future of science advice in Canada?
Well, I would say that in the 20 years that I've been involved in science advice in Canada, I've never seen the level of interest that we see today. So I'm actually quite encouraged that the institutions we're putting in place and the level of interest is a good sign for the future.
So Paul, same question to you. What's the future of science advice in Canada from your perspective?
So I've been in this business for over 40 years, and I know I can't recreate the Science Council of Canada in today's context. That said, I think there are some very positive signs where federal, provincial governments are now starting to think more seriously about the use of evidence in public policy, and a Canadian public that is much more knowledge thirsty. And I think our students and the new generation of youth are now starting to understand this better.
Thank you to Paul Dufour and Jeff Kinder, and thank you to the IOG and the Institute for Science, Society and Policy for sponsoring the panel discussion. And you can find out more about the book at iog.ca.